Welcome back to This Week in Events. I'm Bob Tuvey from Event Planner News. I'd like to welcome back again Paul Richardson.
Hi.
And new to the show is Mr. Adam Baggs of Soaring Worldwide.
Hey, Bob.
So we've got a kind of an alcohol-themed episode. Not that we're drinking while talking
Although maybe we should have done. Maybe we should have recorded this at 5 o'clock instead of 9 o'clock.
at your preferred favorite bar. But it's far too early in the morning for doing that. So we've got three items to discuss. One in depth, which is BMA House with their report on increase of sales of non-alcoholic drinks. There's a bar in Leicester Square that offers axe throwing, and a bar that sells burgers and bullets in the US. Sounds like a fun night out for some. So let's start with BMA House. So they're reporting an increase in non-alcoholic drinks across their bars at the venue. And this may be going against industry trend. Oh, well, not industry trends, but trends in general when it comes to drinking.
I just have, I'm just in reference to that, looking at Guardian article, and the Guardian article was saying that there is a decline in consumption in the UK. Not because more people are not drinking, it's because more people are drinking less. So the consumption rates are down. So that seems to be an overall general stat that having looked at the Guardian and is it Drink Aware and a couple of other campaigns.
I was going to say Drink Aware, yeah.
This conversation, yeah, they're saying that the general trend across the board is down. That changes when you start to divide it up and look at more granular detail. So when you look at geography and age group, if we put some socio-economic demographics on it as to who drinks most and what age groups drink most and who drinks in a binge drinking style and who has more consistent drinking habits, that kind of becomes a bit more piecemeal and a bit more granular. But it's interesting to see that a venue is reporting that. And just one question I would ask is it kind of chicken and egg? Are they trying to lead the way in this, and are they promoting this as a route, or is this as a result of demand from clients going into or booking in the venue that want alcohol free?
I mean, I think it's one of those things. I think, in BMA's particular example, they've made a specific decision to offer more interesting soft drink options, which I think is going to help drive that change anyway. I mean, so many places you go to, it's, the non-drinking option is a glass of orange juice that's going to give you acid because it's relatively rubbish orange juice, or some water, maybe a Coke if you're lucky. And in fact, at one event I was at recently, you could have wine on the table, you could have water on the table, but if you wanted a Coke or a non-alcoholic beer, you had to actually pay extra for it, which seems a little unfair. But BMA, I know in particular, have improved the quality of their soft drink offering. So they're offering more interesting soft drinks. So, I guess, there is, as you say, it's that chicken and egg thing, if we build it, they will come, that kind of thing. And they're offering something more interesting. And if you're sitting there and you're on the fence, well, I could have a drink or not because I'm moderating maybe. And if there's an interesting soft drink option, I think that's going to have a big impact.
Mm.
Well, that leads to the question, just to sum up what you've been saying, which is the demand being led by the clients, the people who are going to the venue and saying, we want, or is the venue saying, well, look at our fantastic range, what's leading this?
I know BMA in particular. I mean, the nature of BMA House, British Medical Association, own the venue. There is obviously, in an organisation like that, they're going to be looking first. They're a forward-thinking organisation when it comes to health options. They got involved in sustainability very early. They've got a lot. They're taking a lot of red meats out of their menus, all that kind of thing to make healthier offering and more sustainable offerings part of the normal basically in terms of the venue. So this is a natural extension of that. Is let's get there first. Let's be a part of that. To make those offers available to people. So they're making them available, and then I think a lot of the buyers are getting on board with it. I mean, certainly the research and well, I mean, I guess it's obvious from the stats they're seeing an increase in soft drinks. Obviously, they're offering it, and the delegates are saying, "Thank you very much. We're pleased for that. Pleased about that." So I think it's obviously something people are wanting, and they're giving it an opportunity.
Just to be clear, Adam, you do represent.
Yeah,
BMA.
the reason I've got that bit of extra knowledge on this and talk about it. Yeah, BMA are one of my clients, so yeah, it's not like I'm just guessing at the story.
We do have another team member who makes appearances. She often name drops, which is fine. This
You
is where
started with my clients, so I'm just going to jump on the bandwagon. Thank you.
Well, this is where we get a chance to go a little bit more in depth, because BMA better than me and Paul would. So having that little extra depth to it is perfectly good. So, but yeah, it's good to see that they're increasing the sales. Seems like they're offering better options. These options have been welcomed by anybody who goes there, delegates, attendees for events.
It'd be interesting to understand when you start looking at the kind of market of this. We talked about whether it's a field of dreams kind of approach, or whether this is a trend driven by people finding it less acceptable to drink during a working day at working events. So if BMA House is hosting daytime events, are people seeing the good old-fashioned boozy lunch? Is that something that's now done and dusted and out of the way, and people are either by nature of their roles and by nature of how the employment market works, are less likely to have an afternoon where it's acceptable to be slightly tipsy from a few glasses of wine at a meal at a lunchtime event, whether they're expected to come back and perform at 100% in the afternoon, or whether they actually want to.
Well, there is a move now for food not to be so bulky at lunchtime, not big meals, because they want their attendees and their clients to stay awake in the afternoon. So I can imagine alcohol's the same thing. You don't want people just dozing off during a session.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is anecdotal rather than me having any stats or anything around this, but for quite some years there's been talk at things like ABCO events and amongst the PCO community and across corporate as well. They're spending a fortune on these events. They want it to have value. They want it to have impact. So if half your delegates are asleep in the back of the room because they've had a massive great lunch and 6 glasses of wine, then the amount they're spending on it's going to reduce the return on investment and etc. So why would they do that? They want these events to deliver, whether it's sales, whether it's education, whether it's networking. So maybe in fairness, the last one there, maybe the alcohol can grease the wheels a little bit on the networking front, but certainly the education side of things, and that is going to drop off a little if people can't keep their eyes open. So I think there is a big push to ensure maximum value at the time of these events.
I would like to see a little bit more context in the report. As in, is this a London-based phenomenon? Almost say that word. And we're seeing outside of London, maybe different drinking habits, and also a better idea of the age ranges, which may be difficult to get hold of to actually track that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak certainly to some of the the data has come from sales of the venue is obviously able to see how many bottles of wine it's selling, how many soft drinks it's selling, and that kind of thing. They're not obviously in a position to sit there and quiz every single delegate about age and that kind of thing to work out who's drinking and that kind of thing. So I mean, I guess that's where it steps back into what we were saying a minute ago about the drink aware thing. There is granular data available around different parts of the country drinking more and less and that kind of thing. And as you said, different age ranges drinking more and less, and I think that's that's highly relevant to this. I guess it's be an interesting piece of research for maybe one of the big venue groups to do, or be interesting to see a big hotel chain do it. That'd be fascinating. Big hotel chain provides us information globally. I bet they've got some fascinating stats on that. But
well, if Hilton or Marriott or anybody like that is listening, please do get in touch.
And it could be interesting to know where the what the cycle is like in terms of alcohol consumption during an event and then post event, or conference delegates staying in an evening. Just recently looking back at the the hotel we stayed at, well, we didn't stay in an apartment, but the hotels around Confex, what their patterns were, because some of the hotels see a lot of the delegates going and hitting the bar after a day at a show, or a day at some of the meetings going on around it. Did if they've got events held in the hotels, how is that different to what happens in the evening? Are people more likely to have a blowout at the end of a day of a show, or are they more likely to participate in alcohol? It'll also be interesting to see what from a commercial point of view, I'm sure nobody's going to tell us this, but where's the better margin? Is it on soft drinks, or is it on beer and wine and spirits?
Well, I mean, I think we all know the stories from way back when and that kind of thing. You know, a pub loves it when someone comes in and buys a pint of Coke from the tap that it's costing them 3p pence to pour and that kind of thing, with that syrup stuff and that. But I think it's probably a bit different with. I think people want more interesting soft drinks now and that kind of thing. And you know, that I know with BMA in this example, for example, they're providing, you know, the higher end soft drinks and that. And they've got non-alcoholic beers, wines, cocktails, and that kind of thing. So I don't know the answer to that, but I can't imagine it's like it was with the old Coke syrup and that kind of thing.
And maybe that's. I mean, again, we keep trying to work out whether it's chicken or egg situation. If the soft drinks are more tempting by better flavors and better variety. When your soft drink is either orange juice, a Diet Coke, or water, and when you've suddenly got lots of these other nice drinks that are being offered you see on social media, on TV, that are mixes of various herbs and spices and flavors, that actually draws people away, because previously your options were a nice glass of red, a nice glass of white, or a Coke or water. You kind of feel like the value of the experience is more going to be inclined towards that alcoholic drink rather than something better. And the BMA is obviously it's on brand for them to be moving in that direction anyway, isn't it? It seems like a good public message for them to give.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and you know, I was interested though. You know, I was chatting to them yesterday. I mentioned I was coming on the podcast, and obviously their marketing manager was delighted to hear that. You know, and mentioned a couple of the new brands they've got coming through of the soft drinks they're going to be doing. So you know, they're almost doubling down on this and going, right, you know, people are interested, people are seeing more, they're seeing more coming through the tills and that. So let's add more mocktails in there. They're doing a deal with a sustainable non-alcoholic drink provider to get more interesting options in there. So, you know, hopefully that'll appeal to the delegates. And what you were saying earlier about that residential element, I do think probably has a lot of weight around this conversation. You know, I mean, yeah, I think it's a lot easier to have a couple of beers at the end of the day after a show or an event that's somewhere where everyone from the conference is all going back to the same hotel and that kind of thing, versus, you know, BMA House, they have fantastic partnerships with local hotels and that kind of thing, and plenty of delegates doing that. And this data did include weddings, Christmas events, evening events, celebrations, and that. But ultimately, you know, once things wind up at BMA House, it's, you know, that's the end of the event from that perspective. Well, maybe they're coming back the next day, so there is an opportunity to go to the hotel and that. But BMA's data here is based around that time in the venue rather than the 2 o'clock in the morning at the hotel bar information, which could be very, very different.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think the conversation we started having yesterday. I think sorry, when I say yesterday, Bob and I had a quick catch up, didn't we? Just to sort of prep for this and think about a couple of topics. It's not just me randomly talking about yesterday. I think one of the other interesting things about this is, you know, there is, looking at the Drink Aware campaign and that, does appear to be this desire to moderate and changing drinking habits. And I think that, you know, that I think the industry as a whole has got to be aware of that. And there has been talk for a while about this. I remember Robin Parker, who was the general manager at Church House pre-COVID, he had a right old rant at one point about showing up to an event as a non-drinker and, you know, just being given given the water and the orange juice. And that's not it's not a new thing. So venues have got to get on board with this, and organisers as well should be driving the venues to provide better things for their delegates, I think.
I'm not a drinker. I haven't drunk any alcohol since 2018. Well, not knowingly anyway. And I'm often disappointed by, you get an invite to go and see somewhere, like a hotel or a venue or something. And if it's an evening thing, would you like a glass of champagne? No, not unless you've got it as an non-alcoholic. So that either their faces drop and go, oh, we can't help, or they go, hold on, sir, and they disappear for 10 minutes and come back with a couple of glasses of non-alcoholic champagne. It's not there straight away.
No.
The other thing is, you mentioned mocktails, that often is just flavored sugar.
Yeah, incredibly sweet. Yeah.
I've had that several times, and it's like, oh God, this is awful. I'm going to be like 10 kilos heavier by the time I leave here.
And I don't think that should be the answer, because I mean, I know there's a couple of things I've seen. Pentire. I mean, there's plenty of now non-alcoholic, call it gins. I don't know if they're allowed to call it a gin because there's no alcohol, whatever. But those botanical drinks, Pentire is a fabulous one. It tastes like a grown-up drink. Pentire and tonic is really nice. It doesn't taste sweet. It's got that sharpness to it. There are so many good, particularly on the beer front as well. I mean, it's Six Nations at the moment. Guinness is all their branding. It's been the Guinness Six Nations for I don't know how many years, but it's now the Guinness Zero. All of their branding around all the matches is Guinness Zero, and Guinness Zero is the closest beer that I have found so far to the real beer there is. It's a good drink, and it's not that hard for places to provide these kind of things. There's so many options. I'm so disappointed still when I go places and say, can I have a non-alcoholic beer? And the options are, we've got one, and it's the sort of pull something dusty out from the back of the fridge that no one's seen in 4 or 5 years. It shouldn't be that hard.
I do believe the industry should be leading the way. And it sounds like BMA House is getting there, is doing that. I've been to, I think it was a couple of years ago, I went to see a well-known exhibitor stand, well-known company within the industry. And I got talking to them. Would you like a drink? And I've mentioned this before. On the front desk of the exhibit stand was all these beautiful looking beer bottles. Absolutely amazing. They must have imported them from somewhere. Absolutely amazing. And I explained I don't drink. So out comes the panic bought carton of orange juice in a plastic cup. The industry could do a lot better, can actually lead the way and provide the better options. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, we're an industry that's all about hospitality, and good hospitality is anticipating the needs of your guests and providing solutions to that, in my opinion. So I think, that's, people should be looking at a changing world and providing those options. And there are many more people like you, Bob, now who don't drink at all.
Yeah.
I was at a awards dinner, not an industry one. I'm trying to think, just before Christmas, I think it was. Lost track of time. At a very well-known London venue that's used for a lot of awards dinners and that kind of thing. And I was on a dry table because of the people who had invited me there. It was a dry table, and they were comfortable if I wanted a beer, etc. But the venue staff really struggled, and it was basically there was just a cooler in the middle of the table that was full of bottles of Coke, Diet Coke, and that was about it. And some highly questionable, overly sweet fake Prosecco. That was the only options.
It does sound as some places and some companies there is a distinct lack of imagination.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was I was just to say that was a well-known five-star hotel brand with many properties around the world, who I believe certainly used to own a brewery. I don't know if they do anymore. That was a long time ago, but they could do better.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, again, how difficult is it to offer an interesting range of just plain straight fruit juices? I mean, I will be happy with something that's an interesting, nice, not from concentrate fruit juice. to have with dinner. Interestingly, just so that obviously Adam doesn't plug his client mercilessly without any riposte from anybody else in the room, just reading a blog post from 30 Euston Square, who I will say are not a client of ours at the moment. If they want to
That used to be one of mine.
Did they? If they want to be, please apply here. But they just put a blog post up about alcohol, which is quite interesting reading. A is for alcohol, Z is for Gen Z, and looking at the trends in where our industry is going, as in the next generations coming through. And there's they're saying significant shift happening now in the Gen Z are the catalyst for the change, transforming delegate packages and dinner events and awards. So things like mindful drinking and NOLO, as in no alcohol or low alcohol options being prioritized. So the philosophy of taste over effect swings in, and 30 Euston Square is now saying that they're seeing that as a trend. So it's not just BMA, it's seen in other venues as well. So it'd be interesting to see across the landscape if that is a universal shift, because there's two fairly sizable, fairly visible venues there, both saying the same thing.
What's interesting with 30 Euston Square as well, and obviously I haven't even seen the post that you're talking about there. But what's quite interesting is obviously 30 Euston Square is Royal College of GPs, general practitioners. So again, it's a medical first, health first led venue. I don't know again if that's any part of that, and are we seeing this coming from the medical linked venues first, and maybe others will follow. And I have totally made that up as that's absolutely not any kind of data driven comment of mine, as it were, but it would make sense that they would do that. And what's interesting with Euston Square is that's obviously Circe's are the caterer, who have a number of other venues. So it'd be interesting. Circe is a slightly odd one, I think, at 30 Euston Square. It certainly used to be actually Circe's managed the whole property, whereas Circe's managed some other properties, but we're also catering in-house at other properties. It'd be interesting to see whether what they're doing and seeing at 30 Euston Square is feeding into other properties elsewhere.
Yeah, well, there's again, because I lined a few of these web pages up before we had this conversation in terms of looking at where if there's any indications of trends, and there's an drinks industry publication called Just Drinks, and that follows through and across the board. So outside the industry, the general trend UK wide is consumers increasingly looking for alcohol-free drinks and how that's going to impact the industry. And this is what they're saying, the latest report, which was published 2024. So it's a couple of years old, the report. But they're saying producing it in association with UK-based alcohol-free beer brand Lucky Saint. The report is now in its 5th year, so they've got tracking data over 5 years. I will go and see if I can hunt down a later version of it. But the two key points there is that consumers are drinking less and less alcohol, and the trend is that it's not going to stop; it's only going to increase. So the general trend UK-wide would seem to be indicative from that report that we are seeing more and more and more people moving to the no-low drinks profile. So you'd think the events industry and the venues would be a little bit sharper on the uptake and leading. Whereas from the last two events I've been to, they're not.
I'd love to see the statistics. Sorry, Bob, you put your hand up. I apologize. You go first.
No, it's fine. No, all I was going to say is I found some reports that were indicating an increase. Paul, you're finding reports on decrease. So it seems, again, BMA House is leading the way with options and getting, and there's something they're doing that's increasing the uptake of non-alcoholic drinks. But outside of that, the reports seem to be saying slightly different things, an increase here, decrease there, and a general reduction in the amount of alcoholic drinking. So I think for the moment, it's difficult to say how to put the BMA into context.
Yeah, I'd love to see. I did a story from last night, actually. I don't live too far from Cheltenham. It's Cheltenham Festival this weekend, and we popped out for dinner, and I totally forgot it was Cheltenham Festival, so it was hard to find a table anywhere. And just after we sat down, the people came back from the festival, and a chap walked into the restaurant and immediately asked the waitress where his bedroom was. It was not a hotel. He'd obviously had a very good day at the races, shall we say. But Cheltenham Festival it's always been a heavy drinking thing, and it's quite a lot of Guinness there. I don't know if they sponsor that. I'd love to see the statistics, which I'm sure someone has. It'd be fascinating to see if something like the festival this weekend has seen a marked difference in, is other Guinness tents pushing all the zero as well? How much more of that's being drunk? How much has that changed? That would be really interesting to see. And I assume that'd be the Jockey Club probably that has that information. So yeah, which is one of the big industry caterers, and I can't remember which. I'm pretty sure it's got the Jockey Club venue, so it'd be an interesting one to see at some point in the future.
Well, in a slightly related story, there's a bar in Leicester Square, the Rocket Room. It's opening in April, and they've got games, and it is a bar, so it's alcohol related, but they have some interesting activities. They've got darts, which sounds great. They've got shuffleboard and a few other games, but probably the most interesting is that they've also got axe throwing. Who would like to go to a bar and throw axes?
So I can say I have done. So there's been one of those near us for about the last 5 years. I went 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know the details of the London one. It was a great night. We had a lot of fun. I actually, turns out, have some talent at axe throwing. I had a video of it somewhere on my Facebook. You won't find it now because I haven't got that anymore. But in terms of the alcohol related element of this conversation, there was a waiver signed when we all arrived, first of all. And I do believe we weren't allowed to drink before we took part in that particular activity. So it was kind of a half-hour activity at the top of the night. We weren't allowed to have a drink until we'd completed the axe throwing. How they can control whether you've all been to the pub the night, all afternoon and got there, I guess that's down to the staff and that kind of. I don't know how they measure that. I don't know how, or maybe our waiver. It was so long ago. Maybe our waiver confirmed we hadn't been drinking within a certain period of time. I don't remember. But yeah, it's great fun. Go for it.
I'm pretty pleased to hear that. At least on your experience, it was a please sign here to indicate that you've not been drinking. I would like to see what the axe throwing competitions are like after you've had about 3 or 4 rounds. I mean,
does axe throwing fall into the same category as paintballing, where you get groups of people going for one trial taste? They're a bit of fun, something that either a pub group's organised it or a group of friends or something like that, and then you get the hardcore element that repeatedly go to improve their ability to throw an axe at somebody. Is there that competitive edge of axe throwing and then the leisure pastime side? I just wondered if it had evolved into that kind of scenario yet.
Yeah, well, I'm guessing in the US there probably are axe throwing competitions amongst the lumberjack fraternity, as it were, and that kind of thing. I can't imagine there's too much of it around here and that kind of thing. It does bring up the question, though. I mean, you said to begin with, Bob, about it's shove halfpenny darts and axe throwing. I mean, darts has been a pub staple all my life. You got these sharp, pointy things, and there's certainly never anybody saying, "Oh, let's," the international darts on the TV. There's usually, I don't know if it's still the case, but you see people throwing darts at that level back in the day with a pint in their hand. You got a question: should you be allowed to throw a pointy object when there's an audience around and other people in the room when you've had a pint at all? I don't know.
Isn't there a case of a dart is much smaller than a large axe?
Still blind someone.
Well,
you don't remember the football supporter walking out of the football stadium with the picture of the dart stuck in his head back in the early 80s?
Yeah.
I mean, they're sharp and pointy, and if you going back into the days of my youth when we used to play darts in the pub, you'd kind of ask people to just edge away from the mat, and they just have to sit there and drink the beer and hope you didn't hit the wire. and it ping out because it goes anywhere. So if you put a safety zone around, if you really applied health and safety, you'd have ped barriers 2 meters either side of the dartboard, and then people actually participating would have to wear some kind of protective spectacles, steel toe cap boots, because when it comes back out and lands on the floor in front of you, protective gear. It kind of would take the essence of it being a pub game. It's like so many of these things. You look back on them and you think, crikey, it's like the cheese rolling. I mean, all those kind of things. The guy who's my best man, Phil Haig, he participates in the Haxie Hood every year, which is 2 enormous groups of people, and they fight and push and grunt over this cylinder of leather that was supposed to be apparently some lady of the manor threw a hood dropped in the mud at some point, and these 2 people from these different villages decided they were going to fight to see who was going to return this hood to the lady of the manor. And it's this huge, great heaving mass of people who've been drinking since about 7 a.m, and they shove each other up and down the fields and through the drainage dikes of the intersection between Lincolnshire, Nottinghamshire, and South Yorkshire. And that's great tradition. Now, if you came along and said, I've got this sport where completely unregulated violence in a field over a piece of leather, you'd be stared at for hours and people would just disregard it. But there it is. It's tradition. We chase cheese.
Isn't that called rugby nowadays?
Not in England, though.
If someone invented rugby now, it probably would have huge question marks. I think that's the thing with a lot of these, isn't it? They you look back through history and look back through a lot of these sports have been created from one thing or another, or a lot of these hobbies and pastimes, going right back to the beginning. When you look at the bans on or not the bans, but the limitations on smoking, the illegal nature of all sorts of things. If alcohol was invented now, pretty sure it would be illegal. That's it's some of this is just it's tradition. It's just part of our society, isn't it?
Oh, speaking of weapons and violent kind of activities, so Adam, tell us about this bar in the US.
I have to say this is absolute hearsay. And that I was looking yesterday. I'm going to be at IMEX in Vegas later in the year, so I was just looking to see couple of hotel options yesterday and I noticed near the hotel I was considering, in that area down that end of the strip, there was a bar called Bullets and Burgers, and it's a little bit concerning. I don't know how much is a bar and that, but there is definitely a picture on the website of a burger and fries and a beer, but also the website's got an awful lot of pictures of the machine guns, the tanks, and all the other fairly substantial weaponry you can, I guess they would say, play with, use, and all that kind of thing. So it's a bit of a concern that, morning out, shooting AK-47. I don't know when you're allowed to start drinking on their events, but yeah.
It just got in my head now that you can actually order and say, I'll have the cheeseburger, I'll have the fries, onion rings, and something for my AK-47, please. I hate to say it, but American friends, we love our American friends, but what are you guys thinking about?
You can question. Having drunk a lot of American beer and it's approximation to water, then maybe it's actually not that much of an issue. But like you said, let's not offend our American friends too much.
Yes, they're a lovely bunch of people with dubious governments. Okay. Well, gentlemen, let's bring this to an end. Fascinating talk about alcohol. Congratulations again to BMA House for their increase in non-alcoholic sales. It's good to see that they must have the options there for people to choose from, and it seems to be going well. And and if anybody fancies axe throwing in central London in a controlled environment, not just sort of like randomly turn up on some street, then head out for the Rocket Room that's opening in April. Anyway, thank you, gentlemen, very much for taking part.
Pleasure.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me on for the first time. I thoroughly enjoyed it and probably
Pleasure.
talked too much.
No, that's fine. You did the reasonable amount of name dropping, so that's good. The standard amount. So thank you. And yeah, if anybody's got anything they would like to say, any comments or thoughts about this episode, head over to the EPN Journal community page. Link will be in the show notes, and please share your thoughts and opinions on anything in previous episodes and in this particular episode about alcohol. So thank you very much for listening.